Is magic real? Insights into the field of biodynamic preparations with applications to compost diversity. By Dylan Hanneman, a master's student in regenerative organic agriculture at Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa, USA. Abstract: The Josephine Porter Institute for Applied Biodynamics in Floyd County, West Virginia, creates their own formula of biodynamic preparations called the Pfeiffer Biodynamic Field and Garden Spray. This formulation is generally intended for spraying over a large field. Each unit is 2 ounce per every 1 acre of application and is a combination of BD 500 and BD 502 through BD 507, with 55 different types of organisms, bacteria, fungus, actinomycetes, and yeasts. This study is to find out what biological markers of microfauna and microflora can be found inside of a compost, applied with the Pfeiffer formula. The biological markers of organisms such as bacteria and fungus shall be analyzed using the phospholipid fatty acid test, or the PLFA test. The Qualitative Functional Group Diversity Index, or the harmonious balance of key players in the soil food web, will be analyzed using the quantitative amounts of total living microbial biomass, or PLFA, per nanogallons per gallon. Background in biodynamic agriculture. Rudolf Joseph Lorenz Steiner was born in February of 1861 and died in March of 1925. He was born in Croatia, which is present-day Austria. Dr. Rudolf Steiner is a major founder of biodynamic agriculture, who developed advancements in esoteric thinking, anthroposophical medicine, Waldorf education, architecture, the religion of theosophy, and the intuitive expressive movement known as eurythmy, who outlined the principles of biodynamics in his agriculture lectures held in June 7th to 15th in 1924. And there's a link. These lectures were in response to the growing crisis of animal diseases and soil degradation caused by the industrial takeover of agriculture in post-World War I Europe. The lectures outline the process of making and applying the biodynamic preparations, as well as the philosophy of applied biodynamics. The biodynamic perspective is that the farm is a microcosm of the physical world where all the spiritual and etheric forces of life in nature must be utilized, balanced, and satisfied. The purpose of biodynamic agriculture is to increase the cosmic intelligence of nature within the farmer, the animals, the plants, the farm, and the consumer. Biodynamic agriculture draws on epistemological approaches to knowledge such as astrology and homeopathy, which studies are considered to be a pseudoscience by the greater scientific community. Biodynamic principles were developed by peasants during feudal Europe. These folk practices, by modern-day standards, could be seen as witchcraft. The peasants meditated and refined their senses to be able to decipher what the various cycles, forces, and elements of nature needed to be observed and satisfied. Here we can see a diagram of how each of the astrological signs pertain to the 4 elements within alchemy. It's noted that the moon changes phases every 2 to 2.5 days, while in the current perspective of agriculture, the sun delivers the energy to the plants, and then the intelligence within the soil or the earth reassembles this energy into the form of the plant. However, from the biodynamic perspective, all 4 elements are forming this cosmic intelligence, including the air and the ethers. and the warming principles. Let's just say that on December 26th, the moon was in Aquarius. That means that activities would be prosperous for maintaining, keeping, and sowing of flowers. And as the moon moves into Pisces, which is a water sign, activities of sowing and tending to leafy greens are more favored. That's because the leaves contain the element water, while the flowers contain the element of air and light. Fruit, as well as seeds, are considered to be a manifestation of the fire element from across the cosmos, manifest into a single point. Dr. Fried Pfeiffer, born February 19th in 1899 and who died November 30th in 1961, was a contemporary and a student of Rudolf Steiner, who brought biodynamic agriculture to the United States. In the 1940s, Dr. Pfeiffer made his own formulation of the biodynamic preparations 500 and 502 through 507. This formulation is made available for commercial purchase by the Josephine Porter Institute in Floyd County, Virginia. Dr. Pfeiffer studied the biocatalytic properties of trace minerals on plants and animals. The biodynamic preparations. Pfeiffer BD spray is activated with water, then sits for 12 to 16 hours, during which 5.6 billion colony-forming beneficial organisms are activated. While the preparations are homeopathic, the organisms activated from the preparations are probiotic. The Pfeiffer spray contains preparations 500, 502 through 507. These preparations regulate the biological properties and strengthen life or etheric forces on the farm. The BD preps work with the enzymes and urea of the animal organs, as well as the planetary and cosmic conducting forces of the bones and the plants. I will now describe these preparations. The BD 500, or cow manure, a cow horn is filled with cow manure from a lactating cow. The horn is buried in autumn on a root day and is lifted in the spring on a root day. The result contains 100 times the biological activity that the manure originally had. 502 yarrow. Yarrow flowers are packed inside of a stag bladder in the early summer and hung above the head in the sun to dry. The bladder is wrapped with cotton wraps so animals and insects don't disturb it. 503 chamomile. Chamomile flowers are collected early in the summer, early in the morning, and dried. 504 stinging nettle. Plants are harvested at early stages in the early summer. The plants are dried in the autumn and are packed into clay pots and allowed to break down for 1 year. 505 oak bark. Oak bark is packed into the back of a cow skull and buried in a swamp in the autumn time and is lifted in the spring. 506 dandelion. Dandelion flowers are harvested early in the morning before the heads are fully open. The dandelion heads are stuffed inside of cow intestines to make dandelion stuffed sausages. These sausages are buried in the autumn on a descending moon and are lifted up in the springtime. 507 valerian. Valerian flowers are crushed and mixed with diluted water and put in the sun for 1 week. Here is a brief list of all of the biodynamic preparations uses, or some of their uses. Pfeiffer spray has many applications. It aids in humus formation, stimulates already present germination and topsoil root growth. If applied while turning in cover crops, it aids in transforming organic material into humus. It can be used as a foliar spray for plant growth, and it can be used as a seed soak to aid in seed germination. The Pfeiffer spray was chosen as it can be applied evenly throughout the compost pile, removing some of the randomization of the experiment. Another way to control variables is by using a randomized block design. With the blocks in the design were randomized using a simple coin toss. Here is a diagram of the 30 by 100 foot greenhouse in which the piles were constructed. Some of the variables are the door, which hot air escapes out of, the southeast sun, the direction of the heater, and the more shaded areas as a consequence of the southeast facing sun. It is expected that the best results, or the most well-balanced communities evident of a broken down compost, would happen in P3, P4, P2, and P1 as a result of the heater as well as the southeast sun. Everything done to one compost was done to all of them, with the exception that 4 of the composts were given the Pfeiffer spray and 4 of the composts were not given the Pfeiffer spray. Here's a picture of all of the materials assembled outside of the greenhouse, getting ready to be mixed and put into the boxes. Here is a picture of the 300-gallon water tank that was used to measure out the water added to each compost. Here's a picture of all of the constructed boxes within the greenhouse. Here's a picture of the box filled with the material. The PLFA, or phospholipid fatty acid test, was developed in part in the 50s with using the Bly-Dyer lipid extraction method. The Bly-Dyer solvent or extractant is dissolved in chloroform, and then the resulting fatty acid methyl esters are analyzed using gas chromatography. Here is a list of some of the key players who we are testing for in the phospholipid acid test. Gram-positive and gram-negative was a term created by a guy with gram in his name, so it has nothing to do with weight or amount in grams at all. The main difference between gram-positive and gram-negative is that gram-positive bacteria have thick connective tissues around the cell that are semi-permeable, making them a more complex yet more fragile organism. Gram-negative have impenetrable coatings around them, making them resistant to antibiotics. The presence of predators in the system is a crucial key point that we'll be looking for in our PLFA test. Fungus will also be another telltale sign of a healthy system. For a healthy system, at least a quarter of the organisms should be fungus of some kind. Here is a picture of the compost during extraction. It's evident that the material is much darker than when it first originally went into the boxes. I don't have the results yet for this test, but it's expected that the Pfeiffer compost will have a slightly more positive rating of the overall diversity index. It's also expected that the compost piles with more sun exposure and the compost piles closer to the heater in the greenhouse will also have a more positive diversity index, indicating that those composts are more thoroughly broken down.